Hello and welcome everyone. So we like to start class off or the show off with a joke. And this evening, we decided to speak about the topic of truth. And as you know, truth is something that actually cannot be spoken about. So we naturally decided that this is the way to go.
We're going to be talking about it. Yeah, exactly.
We're
We
going to be
might get
talking about
further
something.
away from it. Maybe we'll get closer. We'll see. It'll be interesting. They say that the truth hurts, and maybe that's true, right? Maybe there's certain things we don't want to see. Um, but the truth can also be very healing, right? I mean, like
Mhm.
it's not great when you're trapped in lies and delusion. Um,
Mm.
and so that's our intro, right? And meditation is about getting to the truth of your own being. Um, and so we're gonna work with that tonight. My name is Dr. Asatar Bear, and my co-teacher here, Leah Schaefer. We come
Hello.
from the Sufi tradition, the tradition of Hazrat Inayat Khan. Um, and we teach a method of heart rhythm meditation. That is, we're focused on our heart chakra and breathing, putting our breathing in rhythm with our heartbeat, and to create a very strong foundation to really explore what is the truth within ourselves. Um,
Mhm.
so, we're thinking about this topic, and we have this poem that Hazrat Inayat Khan wrote, and it's a really beautiful poem, and it's like a teaching poem here. And oh wait, look at this. We have a comment here
Oh,
from
great.
from uh,
California.
from Jaden. Good evening from California, Central Valley. I'm correct. It lies an illusion. Oh no!
Welcome to
Well,
life.
we've come to the right place. We're
Yes, yes, we're
we're
going to
about to
speak
free you
about the
from all that.
unspeakable. Hmm.
Well, let's take a look at this poem. This is like the first stanza of it. The face of truth is open. The eyes of truth are bright. The lips of truth are ever closed. The head of truth is upright. It's an interesting kind of, it's a poem which puts truth into like a person kind of, like as if truth was a person
Mm,
like that. Um,
mm.
and this is like one of these teachings that comes out of Sufism that says, truth isn't something that's like out there. It's not
Yeah.
something that we can speak of, or something that there it is, right? It's something that we can
Right.
become, that we can realize in ourselves.
Hmm.
um, and so it's like this very high aspiration, right? um,
Yeah,
so
and I like sorry. Go
no, go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I like that it says the lips of truth are ever closed because again, we're like, let's talk about truth.
Yeah, we're
Uh,
not going to do that.
lips of truth. And just to touch on that a little bit, part of the reason that truth can never be spoken is because we live in a world where opposites clash. I mean, look at nature. It's
Right.
literally different elements clashing against each other. And so opposites are constantly like constantly here in existence, and they exist inside of ourselves as well. And so when I say something like, oh, this is the absolute truth, you can say, well, this is also true. It's the complete opposite and it's also true.
Yeah.
And so that's why you can never really say or speak a full truth, is because you can say facts, or you can say like this current iteration of your subjective experience of your truth, but like in reality it's like there is no such thing as some concrete one for all statement.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, look, we have another comment here. How would you distinguish truth from facts? Is there a difference?
Yeah.
Yes, there is. We're gonna get to that. We we have a line from the poem, like we'll get to, right. So let's see, what's our next. Here's our next one, right. The breast of truth stands forward. The gaze of truth is straight. Truth has neither fear nor doubt. Truth has patience to wait. Um, well, that starts starting to sound kind of useful, right? Like if you had those
Hmm.
qualities, that could be very helpful, right? Not having fear, not having doubt, that sounds good, doesn't it?
Great.
Having patience. You know what they say, right? The
Mm.
truth comes out, right? The truth will win in the
Yeah.
end, right? I mean, like
Hmm.
that's something, right? When you feel that way, when you're coming from a place of your own truth, it's very powerful, right? And
Yeah.
like it doesn't mean that things are automatically going to go your way, because that's not life, right? I mean, life is it's a world of limitation, right? Um, but you're
Hmm.
coming from that place of truth, at least, right? So, and that gives you a lot of confidence and power, and right, takes away your fear and doubt. So, I mean, if those are things that you're struggling with, if you're human like we are, I don't know, maybe you already guys are already enlightened, but if you're human like us, these are probably things you struggle with.
Mm. Well, and I think it too, it speaks of like truth as more of almost like an indescribable energy in its own right, because truth has neither fear nor doubt. So it's like talking about truth being its own thing, like not it and not encompassing those qualities.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Mm.
should we do the next one?
Yeah.
All right. Uh, the words of truth are touching. The voice of truth is deep. The law of truth is simple. All that you sow, you reap.
Mhm.
Hmm. You reap what you sow. The seeds you plant, that's what's going to grow, right? That's what you're going to harvest.
Yeah.
So there's
And I
something in here
think,
about karma, about cause and
mhm,
effect, right? Like the energy that we put out into the world is ultimately going to return to us. And, I mean, this is like a basic idea that, you know, spiritual people and religious people have talked about for a long time, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that this aspect of all you sow, you reap is probably to me like the most like exact moment of being able to incorporate this like philosophy or theology of truth, um because yeah, I mean it's obvious like in the statement itself. However, so as we explore, and we'll do this tonight, but as we explore like the opposites within ourselves and the opposites within humanity, all the contrasts, all the opposites, all the variants that exist within ourselves and within humanity. Um, it can feel really like the perplexity of it and like the complete complexity of it can be extremely overwhelming. I mean, anything is possible at any given moment. So it's like, what are we supposed to be doing with our lives? Can somebody just tell me what to do? Um, tell me what's right and wrong, and I'll be fine. And but it's like it's not. It just the life is just so extraordinarily perplexed, and we as individuals are so extraordinarily complex, that we can get very much lost like in that complexity, and which is why it's like nice to have like these set rules, like this is right, this is wrong, great, check, you know.
Right.
But that's not accurate, because it's like with every it's just life is way way too complex for that. And so if you just take this moment of thinking like, if you know, as you explore your inner world with your own meditation, you at least get to know yourself better, and you know your opposites within yourself. And if you're somebody that's like not shutting your eyes to what's all happening in the world in front of us right now, you're getting to know humanity better as it is right now, the humanity that you are very much a part of. And so it's like, as we get to know ourselves and know humanity, then at least we have more consciousness and more information, um, to know, okay, well, I think we need more of these seeds, in myself or in my community, etc.
Right. Well, another line from this. Facts are but its shadows. Truth stands above all sin. Great be the battle in life. Truth in the end shall win. I think of this like, there's facts, right? I mean, like, we add something up, we get a certain number, right? But that's not really what we're tuned into, right? And what we're tuned into is narratives, right? We're tuned into stories. We're tuned into what is the meaning here, right? And so we move very quickly from fact to interpretation, right? We don't even realize that we're doing it necessarily, right? We
Mm-hmm.
start doing interpretation almost immediately because, the problem with facts, the problem with like data is that it's boring, like it's boring. Look at a whole table full of numbers, right? Like boring, your eyes are already glazing over, right? I mean, what we want is a story, but a story always comes from a certain point of view, right? And so in that
Mm,
sense, it isn't ever really true, right? I mean, like as many, many philosophers have pointed out, right? There's always a
right,
different way of seeing it. Um,
right.
and like, how can we be so big in ourselves and in our perspective that we can hold all of that, right? Even though these different perspectives are going to clash, right? Like Leah's talking about, there's opposites, right? There's contradiction. Everything has contradiction. So, how do we hold that together in a way that is real, right? And move through life with that, right? With that spirit of truth, because this is what it takes, right? I mean, every perspective has some truth to it, Um,
Mm-hmm.
so and in that sense, it's like this. I used to like this. I had this book of riddles that was. It had two kinds of characters in it: knights and knaves. And the knaves always lied, and the knights always told the truth, right? And so there was one thing. There was one thing that the knaves could never say, right? They could never say. Um, they could never say I'm lying, right? Because that would be a truth, right? And they cannot ever tell the truth, right? So it's like that's the paradox, right? Everything I say is a lie.
Mm,
Why? Well, because it's words, and words are a narrative, and a narrative is limited, and we're never going to be happy with that, right? Because what are we, right? On a fundamental level, we are unlimited, eternal energy, right? That is what we are. And so we're never going to be happy being boxed in, right, to a certain individuality, a certain expression, a certain narrative, a certain story, right? We're always going to be kind of restless with that, right? We're always going to be seeking for what is the whole thing, right? What is the infinite?
right.
Um, and I think that's,
Or
go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
I just think that's, part of like our, longing for that, right? We
Yeah.
want things to be simple, but the truth is so much more than that, right? Like it's not going to be. Um, See, this is where words fail, right? Because sometimes maybe it is going to be quite simple, right? But then sometimes, well, it's because life has contradictions, and right, it's like there's no like aphorism or like way that you can sum it up that's really gonna fit for all times and places, right? So,
No,
and
yeah.
we see this all the time, right? We get hung up on these like certain pieces of wisdom from like the great spiritual teachers of humanity, right? We cling to those so much,
Yeah.
and then they
Mm-hmm.
end up, it's like, well, that was relevant to a certain place and time or whatever, right? Um, and then we end up distorting it by, applying it too widely or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And just for the gentleman that wrote in earlier, so Asatar, how would you distinguish between fact and truth? I mean, it says
Well,
here facts are the shadow of
fact is
truth.
the
That's a
shadow,
nice.
right? So, I mean, well, if truth is like the body, right? The body's cast a shadow, and so, and that comes from it, right? I mean, so there's clearly it's like of truth, right? But is that the body, right? Is that the whole thing? I mean, come on, right? Like you,
Right.
you wouldn't. Your body casts a shadow, but are you going to say that the shadow is your body, right? No, not
Right.
really, right? Like it's certainly cast by it, right? But it's like I think it's an interesting metaphor. It's an interesting way of
Yeah.
putting it, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I like that. And it reminds me of, truth is something that stands on its own. So it's like falsehood. If you remove with anything that's false, if you remove support from it, it will disappear.
yeah,
It will go away if it is actually false. And so like truth is something that it lasts, you know, truth in the end shall win. Like truth is something that will last.
Yeah, yeah.
And it stands in and of itself. It's something bigger. But I think I interrupted you. I don't know if you finished.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what I, I mean,
We're
you know,
we're
we're all,
defining facts versus truth. You said
yeah,
in our phone conversation the other day, you were like, fact is like a speck, and truth is like the whole world.
yeah. That's, I like
I'll
that.
just quote you back
I
to
said
you.
that. That's good. Yeah. I say some trippy stuff sometimes. Wow, wow. Um, we can't speak the truth. I mean, like, so we, you know, whatever, because whatever we say is going to be, it's going to be too limited, you know, and it's not going to satisfy anyway, you know, like the big questions. I mean, you know, because we're meditation teachers, people ask us big questions, you know. I mean, that's the gig, you know. um, and I love it on the one hand because asking big questions really is part of this, you know. It really is part of it. And hearing what somebody else has to say is interesting, you know. I've asked a lot of these questions myself, right? To my, you know, teachers over the years and whatever. But it's also the case that whatever the person says is not really going to satisfy you, you know. Like maybe it's beautiful, maybe it's inspirational, you know, maybe it's helpful. It's not going to satisfy you, right? Because the truth that you seek is within you, right? It's not going to be from somebody else's words. At best, those
Yeah.
words can help you keep going, right? Or maybe, you know,
Hmm.
maybe give you some helpful directions or something, or some help, you know, like keep going, my friend, you know, like that kind of thing, right? But
Hmm.
the words themselves, you know, even though they're coming from that, right? That's not the thing, right? That's just a shadow of it, right? That's just the, you know, kids
Hmm.
still can be helpful, right? The shadow of a person's shadow can tell you something about them, right?
Mm.
But
Mm.
it's not actually the thing that you seek, um, because it's so much bigger than that. And I think the next one, kind of next little stanza, kind of gets to that. The image of truth is Christ, wisdom's message its rod, sign of truth is the cross, soul of truth is God. Um, Kind of tells you what we're talking about here, right? Um, Talking about a very uh, vast
Hmm.
concept.
And just to create like more variant within this phrase right here, so because it goes toward like the Christian viewpoint, so just to kind of open that box a little bit, so the image of truth is Christ. It means more like I believe that Christ is actually a title, and so it's more about like somebody being a prophetic messenger on earth.
Yeah,
So whomever that is for you, and then so whoever embodied that for you in your own perception. And then the sign of truth is the cross. All, as far as I know, like all the religions I know about, they're two opposites placed together. And that's exactly what we're talking about here is like
yeah.
we everything has its opposite, and like almost all religious symbols are two opposites like stacked right on top of each other, and
And
that's the
right.
image there.
And the cross, of course, is an ancient symbol, right? Because it has those two
Mhm.
directions within it, right? And you know, there's a lot of different symbolism in that. But wait, we have a new comment here. Let's see. Uh, there are some people who like to subscribe to ideology that puts a premium on material facts, science, causality, etc. And in some instances, only these things are they missing a bigger picture. Um, you know, we don't want to like draw too much of like a hard boundary between to say like, you know, because there's like an old idea in Western thought that says like there's spirit and then there's matter, and they're like
Yeah.
separate and like, you know, different realms or whatever, or even opposing, you know. Um, that is not really like a perspective that comes out of Sufism, right? Sufism is like it's unity, right? So spirit pervades matter, right? It you know, the things that you're talking about, right? Facts, science, causality, etc., right? Material stuff. Um, that doesn't mean no spirit, right? That doesn't mean that
Mhm.
truth is not, you know, like this kind of fundamental energy, right? Um, it's kind of hard to talk about, right? Because we're used to, you know, like if you talk to a scientist, right, they're going to say, look, I don't believe in stuff that I can't measure or can't observe. Um, And, you know, that's inevitably false. I mean, I hate to say it, scientists, that's false. If that's true, never use the word love again, right? Because, you know, show me, show me love. Where do you put that on a scale, measure it for me, you know, like, there's plenty of stuff. We talk about stuff we can't measure or observe all the time. Everyone
Yeah.
does, right?
I mean, I was just, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's just a
Uh,
reality. I mean, you know,
yeah.
so I think it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's just, it's like this fiction that we get into, you know, that we say like, um, all I care about is the material reality or something like that. That's not true. There's gonna you have your exceptions, right? Everyone has their exceptions, and you know, I think you're talking about like Marxism, right? You know, because Marxism has this very strongly, right? Like it's all about materialism and spirituality is
Mm,
just sort of hocus pocus,
mm.
and you know, let's be honest, right? There's a lot of hocus pocus out there, right? There's a lot of bullshit everywhere, you know, like I mean, and is it in new agey circles? Does it come from meditation teachers or religious figures? Of course it does, right? Does it come from government figures? Does it come from like, yes, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
there's tons
Yeah.
of bullshit. It's everywhere, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, we're not we're not saying that like anybody has like a particular monopoly, you
Hmm.
know, on the truth. Not at all, right? We're saying sort of the
No,
opposite, right? Yeah.
no. And also just to touch on that, the comment, I was reading, I'm a huge fan of Jung, of Carl Jung. And I was reading that earlier today in preparation for this, and he was describing like how science literally labels the subconscious like the unconscious, you know, and like in labeling it like the unconscious, like they're literally saying they have no clue like what it's composed of. They're just like, mm.
That's true, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Unconscious.
there's a lot that we don't know, right? Even we know a lot through science, but there's a lot we still don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think yes. I mean, so short answer to the question is yes. I think if you're if you're denying that there are these intangible, unmeasurable things that nonetheless you believe in, right? If you're denying that, that's just not true, you know. And so you know you're missing something there for sure, um, because we do believe in plenty of things that we cannot measure or observe, um,
Right. Love is a
non-material
great
things.
example. Yeah.
Um, let's see. Oh, we're almost on the poem. We have one more line here.
Oh, great.
Um,
Life
Life of truth is eternal, immortal is its past. Power of truth will endure. Truth shall hold to the last.
See, this is what I find the most comforting is like truth shall hold to the last,
Yeah.
in all the spectrum of truth, because it's like it just really really comforts me. I had I had a particular experience where it was I went through an experience of emotional trauma a few years ago, and basically like I was being told all these things that were just completely different from my understanding, my intuitive, instinctive, the depth of my heart understanding of what was going on. And I just I came across like this exact sentiment at the time. And it took a few years, but a few years later, that same person ended up, because I just held on really steadfast to like what I felt to be, you know, my internal subjective truth in that moment. Like what I felt was the undercurrent. The material life was horrible. It was just like awful, the surface life. And then, but the like what was happening, what was all the things, but the undercurrent, I was like, but this is what I feel is more real, like this undercurrent. Sure enough, like a few years later, the person comes to me and like kind of confides in me, like of all the things, like validating all the things
Hmm.
that I felt to be the truth. And so, you know, within these contexts, of course. And
Hmm.
I just found that again, it was like very much in the depth of my heart, and like the superficial life was horrible, and that's real too. It's not that the those other things weren't real, but it's just that I knew something was bigger. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you can experience something, and then there's something underneath of it that's just so much bigger. And so anyway, so the truth shall hold to the last, I find a very comforting um,
Yeah.
reminder.
Absolutely. Um, we have before we're going to do meditation. Leah's gonna lead it, but we do have one more comment before we do that. Um,
One of anxiety,
from
I
Jay
need to
Cross
focus
here.
on what
Been
I
struggling
can
with a lot of
control.
anxiety. Need to focus on what I can control.
I hear
Yeah.
you.
Right.
I hear
Yeah.
you.
I feel that one.
That's why I advocated for doing this topic, is because I feel everybody is going, I obviously not everybody, but like a lot of people are struggling right now with fears, with the unknowns, and what can you control. And one of the things you can control is your breathing. Most of the time, that is something you can always control, and so that is something that we're going to work with today, and we're going to use our breathing in order to create calmness within ourselves. And like we touched on earlier, you get to control the seeds that you sow. And so, from your unique perspective as a human, as an individual, you're going to see things, experience things in ways that I never will. And therefore, you will know seeds to sow that I will never think of. And so it's really an empowering thing to realize and embrace your limitation and embrace your uniqueness, because limitation and uniqueness is like the same thing. And so you can really sow whatever seeds you want. And maybe that's a seed of self-care, maybe that's a seed of education, yourself or others, or maybe it's something much more big that I can't even imagine. So so we'll start
Yeah.
with a meditation. Did you want to say something else, Atar?
Well, I'll just say, that on the topic of like what can we control? I mean, there's actually very little that we can control in the outer
Mhm,
life, right? Because I mean, it's a world of complexity, right? And there's a lot of forces, and we're just one of those, right? So,
mhm,
there's certainly we. I feel like when it comes to control, our control is very limited, right? But when we talk about ourselves, right? Well, that's where our leverage is, right? I mean, that's really one
mhm,
area that we can control, right? But we have to approach that with wisdom, right? Because how do we how do we do that, right? What does it mean to control the self, right? Um, we don't want to, like we often think of
mhm,
like, well, I'm having these feelings, I don't like it, right? I want to control that. Well, right. We don't want to do that in a way that's going to kill something vital in us, right? Because our
mhm.
feelings are like that's life, that's vitality, right? We don't want to choke off that flow, right? So
Yeah.
it takes wisdom to work with that, right? Um, but we also don't want to be in illusion, right? We don't want to be clinging to ideas that we know aren't true, right? We know on some level within ourselves that that's not true. So that's the whole like point of going within, right? Now, this isn't to say that there's no influence that we have, because I feel like when you say, well, there's very little you can control, and you say, all right, I'm gonna give up. No, don't give up,
Mhm.
because we have tremendous influence, like
We
it's
do.
not control, but the energy that we put out is a lot
Mhm.
more powerful than we know, right?
Yeah.
That's different from control. It's, control is like, I've got something in my hand and I'm controlling it, right? Like that. There's not much that fits in our hand, right? So, but but the energy that comes out of us can be very, very powerful, right? And
Yeah.
it can have incredible effects that are way more wide ranging than we even realize. So, I like what you're saying. Yes, don't fixate and have anxiety about the things that you can't control. But we want to. It's a process, right? We want to realize that our power and our influence is greater than we think.
Mhm.
And I mean, at least this is what I've come to realize in my own path, and
Oh no, it's so true. I mean, on the energetic scale, I talk about this all the time. There's been tremendous amount of studies done when groups of people meditate, it actually decreases violent crime in the region. So all the people that are in your heart when you meditate are getting some sort of effect by that. But then additionally, within social psychology, interpersonal influence, like the subject of how we are influenced by other people, social proof is the second highest form of influence. So that means like observational learning. That means when I see someone else doing something, I'm going to mimic them because I am a human being, and that's one of the fundamental ways I've learned. And so you as a human, it's like even just you showing up and like doing a meditation and being like, I am having anxiety right now, like that's you demonstrating that first of all, you're human, you're having a complete human reaction to all the shit that's going on. And then and then secondly, you're actually like doing something about it, like whether it works out or not. Hopefully it will though.
We have high hopes for that.
I hope. Oh man. All right. And so let's close our eyes. And again, it's like as you're ready, close your eyes and come into your meditation posture, meaning that you want to try to place your bones kind of anatomically in a way that relaxes the muscles the most. For example, my feet are hip width apart. I'm sitting in a chair right now. My feet are hip width apart. I'm going to have my knees a little bit lower than my hip bones, so it's easier for me to breathe deeply. And I'm resting my wrists on my thighs because it allows my elbows to fall right underneath of my shoulders. So you just really sit in a way that allows your muscles to relax as much as possible. And then you go ahead and start to breathe. And if you're new to meditation posture, just know that it does change over time, that your back will adjust, but maybe support yourself with some pillows or something in the meantime. All right, so as you're ready, deepen your breathing. And just right here, just really having a full, deep, complete breath. So that means I'm going to be breathing in my lower abdomen. And I imagine that my breath is like um, almost like a pitcher of water that's pouring into my lower torso, like water filling up a glass, and it really takes its time to fill the container, and it fills the container from the bottom up. So that's how I imagine my inhalation every time I inhale when I'm developing this full breath. And then as you exhale, a lot of the exhalation is very natural. And maybe at the end of the exhalation, you'll notice that you do hold breath in your lungs, stagnant breath in your lungs. And so you can squeeze your abdomen in towards your spine in order to really get all the breath out. And sometimes that can feel really good. So really, really get all the breath out. And there's that trust that the next inhalation will come. And again, sending that next inhalation deep into your torso, deep into yourself. It's really through self-knowledge that we can come to these states of wholeness. And if I've ever had an experience of the truth in meditation, it was likened to an experience of my own wholeness, the wholeness within me as an individual, with all my opposites, with my anxieties, with my fears, with my doubts, and with my joy and my ferocity and my drive, like all these things that are completely inside of me existing together. But then also that that wholeness that you are a speck of life of the whole universe. You were born of the universe. It is inside of you. The whole of humanity, the whole of universe is inside of you. And so that experience of wholeness is available to you as well. But it starts with just this simple act of showing up, just like you're doing right now. Showing up with all that's there, all the opposites inside of you. Even the breath is an opposite, the inhalation and the exhalation. And what are you doing? You're balancing the two. You're balancing the opposites within you just by breathing. And the scientific fact is that by deepening your breath this way, you are moving your diaphragm muscle up and down to a greater degree, and your diaphragm muscle massages your vagus nerve when you breathe deeply. And when it massages your vagus nerve, it activates it. And your vagus nerve then activates your parasympathetic nervous system, causing the relaxation response. Sometimes it's about just like having that faith that a relaxed state of being is still available to you when you're completely filled with anxieties or fears. That opposite still exists inside of you, the opposite of what you're feeling now. And so whatever is there today, whatever you meet inside yourself, I'm just that the nice person that put the comment on about their anxiety, like I have so much anxiety all the time, and so I totally get it. And the object of the game in this moment is like, okay, this is what's going on inside me. So what's going on inside you right now, whatever it is, whatever end of the spectrum, and you breathe into it, whatever it is. And you can do this thing where you have more of this creative, inquisitive nature. So listen, if everything was perfect, it's possible that our longing to create would cease. And so in this moment, you can really approach yourself with curiosity, with an exploration of like, well, what is this really? Why is this really here? Why do I feel this way, really? And you're going to have to go like 8 leagues deep with that. So I just put it out there like a question, but you'll have to spend so many different layers of breath, layers of attention before you finally get past some of the more superficial stories that you might be telling yourself and really get to the kernel of what you need inside of yourself in this moment, or understanding what's going on inside so then you know what you need. And just to almost fast track our meditation a little bit, you could really spend a lot of time with just the first few things here that I talked about. But just to fast track the meditation a bit, I'm going to go into the inner dimension of the heart. because the inner dimension of our heart contains all the dimensions of our heart. It contains all the opposites. And so you want to come into an air breath technique if that's comfortable for you. So breathing in and out of your mouth, still doing full, deep, complete breath. And as you inhale, excuse me, as you inhale, draw from what you feel is the core of your being. So try to first and foremost find that inside of you. So find your core of cores. Find the deepest part, your deepest sense of self. And once you have it, as you inhale, have the feeling almost like you're pulling eternal energy from your core. It's like almost an inverted space that taps into the universal energy of life, and you can just pull from that as you inhale, pulling from it in the way where it starts to fill your heart. Drawing it into your heart from your inhalation, this eternal sense of self. The life of truth is eternal, the eternal sense of self. It's already inside you, it's not anywhere else. It's not something you attain, it's something you find. And then on your exhalation, you send that same energy out in all directions. So maybe it only makes it to your heart, and your heart you just work on filling your heart with this energy. Or maybe it starts to make it out to your skin, and you can fill your body up with it with your exhalation. And then you go again. Every time you inhale, you go again and pull from your eternal sense of self. You pull from that space. And maybe on your next exhalation, you can start to feel it moving outside of your skin and into your personal atmosphere. Into the atmosphere you carry without knowing you carry it, through just your own unique presence. It's this sense on your exhalation, like your heart, the energy of your heart, is expanding out in all directions, and it's expanding out through all parts of you, so that you can feel the wholeness of yourself. And as you inhale, it's like that reminder of your eternal connection to truth, eternal connection to life itself. And then from this space, when you get here, or maybe even just consoling your heart, maybe you're still full in on your anxieties or whatnot, and that's okay. It's okay. But ask your heart, what is the seed that you most want to sow in yourself, in your outer life, in the lives of our children, in the lives of our community. And it can be different for each one. And maybe right now you just focus on your own self, because yourself might need you right now. That's okay. What are the seeds you most want to sow? Where can you begin? All right, and then moving your body and opening up your eyes as you're ready.
Nice meditation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was totally thinking when you said, when you were talking about breathing in your belly, and you were talking about filling up your belly, like envisioning like that there's water, that your breath is like water, you know. I was like totally thinking that same thing right before you said that.
We're tuned in with each other.
Yeah, because well, I feel like it's like that's this feeling that you get, you know, when you really like work on your breath, you get this feeling of like your breath is just flowing, you know, and it has that just like that smooth, graceful quality that flowing water has, you know, and
Yeah, totally.
you know,
And it
it's
feels so cleansing and
yeah,
nourishing at the same
exactly,
time.
yeah, and you know, you don't notice that when your breath is you know, so short and right, like our usual breath is so small and you know, it takes like, I don't know, 2 or 3 seconds maybe, or maybe less, you know, and of course we're not thinking about it anyway, but like, you know, when you really lengthen your breath and really deepen it, it's like that feeling of flow just really comes to the forefront, you know, especially if you focus on it, right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
mm. You know, this thing about like truth is what we realize within, you know, it makes me think of you know, there's this very powerful old Sufi story about this, right? The because the Sufis say, you know, God is truth, right? And so there's a you know, like a practice where you repeat that, and it's Allah al Haq, right? So Allah al Haq, Allah is God, you know, and al Haq means the truth, and so what a great word, you know, first of all in Arabic, right, for truth, the word Haq,
Huck.
because it's such a sharp, uncompromising word,
Right.
you know, and I mean, maybe that's why in English, I mean, the word that it makes me think of course, is fuck, right? Because, and that also has that sharp, I know we try not to swear too much on the program, but sometimes you have to, you know, it also has that sharp, uncompromising, and also where does it hit you, right? It hits you when you yeah, like that, right? It hits you in the gut, right?
Yeah.
Deep in your body, right? So there's something to that, you know, and so anyway, you know, the famous old Sufi story is, you know, that Sufis will do this practice and they just go into unity consciousness, go into ecstasy, and be so deeply in that state that you know you forget yourself entirely, right? You're so absorbed in the divine, in the infinite truth, right? And so there was this great Sufi master, Al Halaj, and Al-Hallaj was known for entering this state, and then he stopped saying Allah al-Haq, right, and he starts saying Ana al-Haq, right, which means I. Ana means I am the truth. Now, this is, not something that the religious authorities wanted to hear, of course, because, they think he means him like an individual, right? Like, but he doesn't really mean that, of course, right? He means who I really am, right? My spirit, my soul, right? That is the I that I'm talking about, right?
Mm.
Because this is what
Mm.
happens in meditation. Your idea of who you are, the I, who am I, that changes. And we want that to change. We want to broaden that, right? Because we're not happy being in this little box. So here's me, right? We want to experience everything, right? Because we are unlimited beings, right? That's the truth of
Mm.
us. Uh,
Mm.
so I just I always think about that story and Al
Didn't he
Halaj.
get didn't he get persecuted?
Well, yes, he was horribly
He was
murdered
murdered
by the authorities
for
for that.
saying such a thing.
Yeah.
Oh my word.
They call him the Muslim Christ because he was crucified and then they cut his hands and feet off also. So different era,
Wow.
lot more brutal era, you know.
Brutal. Yeah. So
But there's
anyway,
something
so
about
so
that.
so a lot of people have sacrificed for you to be able to experience this in yourself freely. freely, freely and singing on the mountaintops.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Mm,
Well, let's do another meditation while we're still
yeah.
in the zone here, and take your upright meditation posture, and your breath is already tuned up, from the meditation that you just did. So we just want to remember that, right? We want to breathe in a way that is deep. So we're expanding the belly as we breathe in and contracting as we breathe out. We want to breathe slowly. So extend the exhalation, breathe out more. Extend the inhalation. We want our breath to be smooth. We want it to flow. We want our breath to be heart-centered. So we want to breathe in tune with a heartbeat, same number of beats on the inhalation as on the exhalation. And I know it's a lot to remember, it's a lot of steps. Um, it's a bit like playing an instrument. Learning how to play an instrument takes work, but you reach a certain point and then you can play. That's the point we want to get to with this practice of heart rhythm meditation, so that breathing in this manner, swinging your breath back and forth, like in a very rhythmic, powerful way, like a swing that you could swing on, and just feeling that powerful rhythm that will carry you through. And using your breath to go deep within yourself. And just envision this as going into the very center of your chest, going deep into your heart. It's like its own world. And you can explore that with your breath. Breathing in, you go deeper. And breathing out, you inhabit that space. Feel into it. What is in your heart? And I want to suggest that whatever you encounter there, you don't say that's good or bad. You try not to judge it at all. You just try to experience it. Like an unfamiliar country that you're exploring, you just say, wow, look at this. Let me experience all that I can from this. It's all you. There's going to be some things there that may not feel great. There's going to be some things that you don't like. some things you want to change. That just means you're alive. Right? That's okay. You can notice that, breathe into it, and let it flow. Don't get snagged on it, you know. But as you explore yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, everything is part of this. Even the things that you notice that you think of as external things, the sounds you hear, the smells even, the sensations in your body, right? Every part of that, right? There's a reason why that came to the top of your consciousness. There's a message in it. It's part of the experience. It's all part of it. And just bring it back into the unity of that experience. And every thought and every feeling, every sensation, every part of it has a depth to it. A thought is connected to a feeling to a deeper feeling. You notice this, right? Our bodies tell a story. You get a pain somewhere in your body, and it triggers emotion quite often, right? Maybe it's not immediately apparent what it means. You breathe into it, draw that into your heart, and see if it tells you a story. And as you do this, go deeper, always go deeper. What is the feeling behind the thought? What is the deeper feeling beneath that feeling that pervades it? And as you go into it, as you explore it, you come to find that these feelings are actually unlimited. They open, they go beyond you as an individual person. And it doesn't matter if the feeling that took you there is what we might label as positive or negative.
Mm.
It could be anger, you know. I mean, what a powerful emotion that is. It's nothing like that gets your attention like anger, you know. And anger can be hot, right? It can be, you know, incredibly powerful in the moment, or it can be sort of cold, right? Like I'm still pissed about that, right? Like, and so if that's the emotion, whatever it is, right, you just go into it and you treat that emotion like it's its own world.
Mm.
Turn up the intensity of it. Use your breath, use the power of your breath. Breathe into that feeling as if it's a room that you're entering within your own heart. And then you come to explore it, right? Now, at first, when you explore something like anger, it's connected to a certain event or a person or a thing that happened, that, you know, a thing you can't let go of, right? But as you really feel it and get into it, right, and explore it and let it run through you, let it fill you up, it starts to become less and less connected to that thing, right? I mean, that's the trigger. It's like you follow the line of it, right? And that's where the line ends, the particular thing that gave you that feeling, right? But that line continues, right, from what came before. And as you follow that, it becomes more abstract. It becomes more of just an energy, right? And the further you go with this, the more you find that that line goes on forever. The energy is unlimited. You forget even, or it becomes less important. What was the trigger, you know, like what was the thing at the other end, right? But And it's just it opens to become a flow of feeling, right? Because a lot of times the things that we're angry about are like the principle of it, right? Like yes, I don't like that that person hurt me, betrayed me, messed with me, whatever they did, right? But it's like that's not right. Well, what is right? Explore that with your breath. What is right? Where does that lead, right? The thing is, if you explore any emotion, you find it comes back to truth, right? How far away is any kind of principle, any kind of right and wrong, right? Keep going with that. You get to truth. But truth isn't just about you, is it, right? Like you started this with your own personal axe to grind. Truth embraces all beings, all of existence, everything that does not exist, even, right? And that stretches you. That stretches your heart. And it blows away your mind, right? Your mind cannot conceive of that, right? Your mind is, it sort of sits there in awe. All right, so we'll end our meditation there. Come
Thank
back
you, Asatar.
to this one. Hopefully you've gotten to experience the truth of your own being and bring that into your life in the way that feels right to you.
Yeah. We'll be here next week, so we can keep meditating because we're all in this together. and um, and yeah, just stay true to yourself and stay true to your love and your light. And we'll be meditating with you separately but together.
Well said. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Namaste. We will see you all next week. Take care.
Bye bye.